My fiancé canceled our wedding because he had a revelation after his ex passed away. But now he's having another revelation while living on the streets with nowhere to stay. To provide some context, let me share a bit about my age and my fiancé's so you understand where we are. I'm 27 years old, and I got engaged to my boyfriend Bryce, also 27, almost 7 months ago. We were supposed to get married in 2 months. Before this, we'd been together for 3 years and had been living together for so long that I can't even remember exactly when it started. Things were going well until about 2 weeks ago, when Bryce found out through some friends that his ex, Kelly, had passed away. Now, about Kelly. They were together for 2 years in university, had an on and off relationship, and remained friends for a few months after graduation, but they stopped talking for the last 5 years. I can understand him being shaken up by this, and I tried to be as understanding as possible, but 3 days ago he told me he wanted to cancel the wedding. In the week since he found out about Kelly's death, he had been distant, but I thought it was because of work. Every time I asked, he didn't want to talk, so I respected that. I also suspected he was grieving over his ex, because even though she was an ex, no one wishes death on someone else, especially considering they ended things amicably. So, as his fiancé, I tried to be as understanding as possible, but he kept withdrawing. I gave him space, and it seemed to be working for a while. I thought he was improving, but then he communicated his decision to cancel the wedding. I asked him why he wanted to cancel, and he said that, after hearing about Kelly, he had a revelation and realized he wanted to stay single for a while. Things escalated after he said that because when he first said he wanted to cancel, I was willing to talk and work things out. Communication is important in a relationship, but when he said he felt he needed to be single for a while, I lost my temper. I had already tried being patient with him, but this felt like a lack of respect. There was clearly something going on with him that he wasn't telling me, and I was tired of waiting for him to open up and be honest. So, in the heat of the moment, while we were arguing, I took off the engagement ring and threw it in his face. I told him that if that's really what he wanted, he could stay single forever because I was breaking up with him. He was really offended and angry. I don't know why, since I was giving him exactly what he wanted. He then grabbed a few things and left. Since then, I've had no direct news from him, only from his parents. According to them, I should have tried to talk more about the situation. They think he might have been stubborn about canceling the wedding, but maybe he was going through a difficult time. They also said that returning the ring like that didn't help, calling me insensitive because he had just lost someone close to him, and that was how he was coping with the grief. They said he was in shock and that's why he made those decisions. They believe I should have been more patient and waited a few days for him to change his mind. They are not happy with me and want me to apologize for my behavior. I really don't agree with them. I think he got what he deserved. So, am I wrong for breaking up with my fiancé while he was grieving the death of his ex? Edit. I realized I forgot to mention some details in my original post because I was in a rush. First of all, Kelly's death wasn't unexpected. Bryce reached out to her parents after hearing the news, and we found out she passed away in her sleep. She had been struggling for some time. 2 years ago, she was diagnosed with leukemia, but only close friends and family knew about her condition. Since she and Bryce hadn't spoken much since their breakup, he didn't know anything about it, no matter how close they were in the past. So, I can understand why he's shaken up by her death, but from what I know, I can't imagine why he'd cancel our wedding over it. Also, the financial situation is concerning because everything is already paid. The wedding is only 2 months away, for heaven's sake. When he mentioned wanting to stay single, I also brought that up. My parents and I have invested so much in the ceremony. So, I made it clear that if he canceled, he and his family would have to reimburse us, because this is clearly his decision. He expected my parents and I to just deal with his indecision, cancel fees, and what we wouldn't be able to get back. I don't understand how that would be fair. He's canceling the wedding, so why should we risk losing our money? Anyway, the fight wasn't just about the wedding or him wanting to stay single. There were many other issues that came up, like this one. Honestly, I don't even know what to think anymore. I started to wonder if he never wanted to marry me in the first place, and that maybe this was just an excuse to escape the wedding without being the villain of the story. It's just a gut feeling for now, but considering his behavior and his parents, I don't think I'm far from the truth. Honestly, I don't know what to say anymore. Update. Yesterday afternoon, I called him and said I wanted to settle everything once and for all. I wanted him to come, grab his things, and leave, but he started arguing with me, saying that we both lived in that house and shared the rent for years, so it wasn't fair for me to just kick him out like that. I told him I was willing to return his part of the rent for the month, but I wanted him to leave. After everything he did, that was the least he could do for me. He was speechless. A few hours later, he showed up with a truck, probably borrowed from a friend or something, and started packing his things aggressively. He was making a lot of noise and constantly muttering. I knew he was really angry with me, but honestly, I didn't care. After everything he did, I didn't think he had any right to be angry with me. If I'm being honest, it seemed like he was more upset about losing the house than about losing the relationship. After spending so many years with him, living with him, and trying to make him happy, if this is what I get in return, then I'm actually really happy I didn't marry him. I can't imagine a man who would be more upset about losing the house he lived in and having to move into his parents' house than feeling guilty about canceling his own wedding. But again, it was him who canceled it. So, I guess the naivety was mine for expecting that he would feel any regret or remorse about it. Anyway, after a while, when he finished packing, he started putting his things in the truck. Even then, he kept muttering. After a while, it started to annoy me, so I asked him to stop because I was trying to focus on something else, and he was distracting me. This was my big mistake. He took that opportunity to start arguing with me again. At that moment, he said that since I hadn't written a check returning his part of the rent, the house was still his too, and he could do whatever he wanted. Naturally, this really pissed me off. I got up, wrote the check immediately, and handed it to him. Then, I told him he needed to leave right away because I had already broken up with him. I was tired of him, the complaints, the anger, everything. But then, he tore the check into pieces right in front of me, threw the pieces in my face, and said he changed his mind and wasn't leaving anymore. That house was also his, and I didn't have the right to kick him out like I was doing at that moment. Finally, I lost my temper. Until then, I had been trying to stay calm because I thought the sooner he left, the better for both of us. But since he arrived, he had been provoking me to the point of losing control. And I lost it, shouting in his face, telling him to leave or I would call the police, and I wasn't joking. He started calling me crazy and said that this was exactly the reason he wouldn't marry me anymore because, according to him, I was clearly not well in the head and there was something deeply wrong with me that I needed to get treated. Then, he started making up excuses, directly telling me that I had forced him to accept the engagement and start planning the wedding, even when he wasn't ready for it. Just to make it clear, this is not what happened. A few weeks before we actually got engaged, I had only discussed the idea of marriage with him, like any couple that has been together for a while. And at my age, I don't think that was surprising. Of course, I wanted to get married, I wanted to start a family, and I had been with him for a while, so I wanted to know his opinion about it too. That's all. I never said I wanted him to propose immediately or that I wanted to get married within a year or something like that. I never gave an ultimatum, so honestly, I don't know what he was talking about when he said I forced him or anything like that. I guess it's just another excuse for him to look like the good guy and me like the villain. Naturally, when I confronted him about those lies, he started saying I was manipulating him. I don't even know where to begin with that because clearly, it was him who was trying to manipulate me. Anyway, the argument went in circles for a few minutes until I just got tired and said that if he wasn't willing to leave, then I would, because in the end, none of this mattered to me anymore. The only thing that mattered now was staying away from him, because it's clear that all the love I had for him during the time we were together no longer existed. Honestly, I had devalued myself in front of him because that would make me weak, and I didn't want that. It was hard for me, and I couldn't control myself, so I just broke down in tears and started sobbing, sitting on the couch. If you think that, at least at that moment, he showed any empathy or compassion, you're wrong. Even then, he couldn't even pretend to be human. As I was crying on the couch, instead of comforting me, he started grumbling that he didn't want to see me cry and that he never intended to break me like that. But in the end, according to him, it was also my fault because, in his words, there was no reason for me to start a fight with him like that, since he was already leaving. Even at that moment, he continued to try to manipulate me, trying to make me believe that I was the one who started the fight when, in reality, he had been aggressive with me from the start. But at that point, I simply didn't have the strength to continue arguing. I just kept crying because the situation was beyond repair, and I cried because this wasn't the person I had known for so many years. This wasn't the man I fell in love with. He certainly wasn't the man I thought I would marry one day. There came a moment when I didn't even know what had happened to him, and it really broke my heart. His behavior destroyed me because, even though we had fought in the past, it had never been this bad. It had never been this toxic. He had never tried to push me to my limit like he did recently. I have no idea what happened to him, but something very clear changed for him to start acting this way, and I just couldn't bear it. So, I kept crying until he finally left, and even after he left, I cried for another half hour. Literally, I cried myself to sleep. I woke up from a nap on the couch, and when I looked at the clock, it was already midnight. So, basically, I didn't sleep at all the whole night, and I'm posting this now at 4 a.m. When he left, he wasn't grumbling anymore. He just left in silence, didn't try to comfort me, didn't say anything, not even goodbye. He just closed the door and left. I feel bad about all of this. Yes, of course I do. I don't think it's something I can avoid. Despite everything that happened before, I can't just forget that this was the man I was planning to marry. Maybe he really had some kind of awakening after learning about Kelly's death. But honestly, I think he just used that as an excuse to cover up the fact that he didn't want to get married anymore. He had been thinking about it for a few days, and I even mentioned it before. But today I'm almost sure that's exactly what happened because, otherwise, I can't think of any logical or rational explanation for his behavior. The things he accused me of were clearly just him projecting his own insecurities. He said I forced him to commit to me, but it was him who did that voluntarily, and now he can't deal with the fact that he ruined everything on his own. He's trying to paint me as the villain of the story, but obviously, that's not going to work because I know exactly how things happened, and I won't let him manipulate me into believing that I'm the one to blame here. What really hurts is that we spent so much time together, and he didn't even have the decency to be honest with me. If he didn't want to get married, if he wasn't ready for it, he could have told me. It would have hurt, of course, but at least it would have been the truth. Now I know he didn't love me enough to be honest and transparent with me. For him, it was more important to come out as the nice guy in this situation than to be honest with a woman he said he loved. So, it wasn't just me he lied to, he was also lying to himself, and all of this is really sad. I don't even know what to think anymore. The only thing I feel now is disappointment. I have no more words. All I can say is that I'm glad the wedding was canceled because, in the end, I think he would have never been happy with me, and I wouldn't have been happy with him if things were like this. A few weeks have passed since my last update. Bryce, his parents, and mine started the process of canceling everything. My parents have been understanding and haven't blamed me for any of this. And since Bryce and his parents don't want to talk to me, they haven't reached out about it either. Obviously, I'm going through a lot, and these past 2 weeks have been a real mental struggle for me. All I've done is go to work and come home. And although at work I'm a bit more composed, it's just because I need to be. But at home, I can't help but break down. I know this isn't healthy, so I've started actively trying not to think about Bryce or anything related to him. I've removed from sight all the little details that reminded me of him because I don't want to think about him anymore. I don't know if this is healthy or not, but right now it's the only way I've found to cope with it. I'm not ready for therapy, and I also don't have time for it right now. So, for now, I'm not considering that option. I also archived our conversations. That hurt more than the breakup itself, but it was something I had to do. Plus, I deleted all our photos together from my phone, but they're still stored in the cloud. I don't think I'm ready to completely delete him for a while, so I left them there, but I'm distancing myself as much as possible from it. I've made several changes to my lifestyle. I've been trying to go to the gym to clear my mind. I started running in the mornings, and in the last few days, although I can't say I'm happy, at least I'm not crying every 2 seconds. So, I guess that can be considered progress. We still haven't made an official announcement. No one knows we've broken up, but I think it won't be long before people find out because we both blocked each other. So, clearly, we're no longer following each other, and if anyone tries to snoop around, they'll find out the truth. More obviously, we also deleted the post where we announced our engagement and all our other photos together. So, if someone decides to snoop, it'll be very easy to notice that we broke up and that we're not getting married anymore. I haven't even told my closest friends yet, but I think I'll have to do that soon. Anyway, for now, that's all. It's been almost 3 days since my last update, and a few days ago, I finally told my closest friends everything. I invited them over to my house because I wanted to share the news in person. I thought this wasn't the kind of thing I wanted to just text about. As I said before, I've been going through a huge mental struggle, so I also wanted to have my loved ones around. My parents still ask how I'm doing every few days, and I'm very grateful for them, but I felt like I also needed my friends, so we gathered. Obviously, they had a lot of questions about why I had been so distant in the past few weeks and why I hadn't spoken to them. In fact, I don't think I spoke much to anyone except about work. They had already noticed that Bryce and I had stopped following each other and deleted all our posts together. And when they arrived, they also noticed that he wasn't there and that many of his things were already gone. I explained the whole situation, and as I spoke, I ended up crying again. It happens every time I think or talk about it, so I wasn't surprised. But it was very comforting to have my friends by my side. They comforted me, told me everything would be okay, and that they were there for me. They let me cry, and it was really nice to be able to talk about it with them so openly. I've already spoken to my parents about it too, but, of course, I can't talk to them the same way I talk to my friends. Anyway, it was a relief to get all of that off my chest, and they told me that he was the one who lost out, that he could have had an amazing life by my side, but in the future he would regret everything he did. Maybe he won't regret it now, but in a few years, he will realize what he lost. Getting nervous before a wedding is normal, but acting like that is far from normal. They told me that, in the end, I had dodged a bullet, and I obviously agree with them. Later, we went out for drinks, and for the first time in weeks, I really had fun. That was a few days ago. So yesterday, Bryce called me. I blocked him on social media, but I didn't block his number or anything like that. He said he needed me to unblock him because he wanted us to make a joint statement on Instagram saying that we had broken up. He wanted us to do it together so it wouldn't seem like a one-sided thing. I didn't understand what he meant by that, so he explained that he wanted it to be a joint statement so it would look like a decision made by both of us, instead of it seeming like he left me or I left him. But once again, he wanted to come out as the nice guy in the story and didn't want anyone to suspect that he was the one who ended things with me and didn't even have the courage to be completely honest when he did it. I thought his request was ridiculous and told him I wasn't going to unblock him for anything. If he wanted to post something about the breakup, let him, but I wasn't going to be a part of it because, in the end, the truth was that it wasn't an amicable breakup like he wanted to paint. It wasn't something we both wanted, it was something he wanted, and he didn't care what I wanted. He had been dishonest the whole time, and that's the version I was going to stick with. Frankly, I didn't care what others would think of me. That wasn't my problem. He tried to argue with me, but I simply hung up the phone and blocked him because I don't have time for that. Later, I heard from some mutual friends that Bryce made a post saying the decision was made by both of us. They came to me to comfort me, but I was completely honest with them and told them that was a lie. He made that post against my will, and I told them the truth so they would know exactly what happened. I didn't care if this seemed uncomfortable or vengeful. I knew that, for him, it was important to maintain the image of the good guy for everyone, and it was equally important for me that they knew that wasn't the truth. If that made me seem bitter, so be it, because, honestly, I've passed the point of caring about that. As expected, my decision to tell the truth to our mutual friends about what really happened wasn't well received by Bryce. He made a series of posts afterward, saying that I was spreading a false narrative to play the victim and that everything was a lie. He said people should trust him because, at least, he tried to preserve my dignity despite my behavior. His statement was that he was disappointed with the way I chose to handle the situation, as if that mattered to me. I think he's already disappointed me enough for a lifetime. I don't expect anything better from him. Anyway, most of our mutual friends chose to believe him, which wasn't surprising either, because many of them were people I met after we started dating, so regardless of whether I'm telling the truth or not, I figured they'd take his side. It was expected that they'd take his side, but at least now I have the satisfaction of knowing that I spoke my truth, and whether people like it or not, it's irrelevant. Now, everything is done and over, and I'm finally going to try to move on. My friends put me in touch with a therapist, and apparently, I'll start my session soon. So, I hope this helps me in some way. Other than that, I continue going to the gym and running in the mornings, now that I have so much free time. Since I'm not getting married anymore, I've decided to invest that time in myself, to build something of my own. A lot of new things are coming my way, and I'm going to stay busy, without regretting having lost that guy, who clearly wasn't good for me. In the end, as my friend said, the loss is his, and when he realizes this, it'll be too late. Actually, it's already too late. I loved him, and he lost me. But so what? Now I'm better, and even though sometimes I miss him, I remember what he did, and that helps me stop thinking about him. Update. 5 months can do wonders for a person's mental health. Time really heals everything because the more distant we get from the memories, the less they affect us. I've received help, of course. I didn't do all this on my own. Another thing that 5 months does is show how wrong the other person was. In the first few months, he was enjoying his single life. That much wasn't a lie, and that's exactly what he did. He posted on social media, and even though I didn't follow him, there was always someone to tell me. But that regret has finally arrived. When a mutual friend, one of the few who didn't believe my ex's version, told me he had asked to speak with me, I became curious to know how many people he had tried to reach out to before and how many had said no or simply ignored him. My response was a simple no. I have nothing else to say to him, and honestly, giving any response is already more than he deserves. I know I'm assuming a lot, because I don't know exactly what he wanted to say to me, but at this moment, I can't imagine any other reason for him wanting to speak with me. And even if it wasn't that, I still don't want to talk to him because I don't see anything good coming from that conversation. I have the letter that explains a lot about my ex, a letter that this friend delivered, which my ex wrote to me. My friend asked if I wanted him to destroy it or if I wanted to receive it. I took a few days to decide what to do, but in the end, I asked him to give it to me, since, if it was a complete waste of time, at least it would serve to post here. This is the letter with most of the content. I had to delete some personal information, but other than that, the essence is the same. I behaved like an idiot by canceling the wedding, and now I regret it because I know our relationship had enormous value in my life. During this time, I met many women, but none of them are like you. I know I hurt you, but maybe now that we've both gotten over everything, we can try again and see, with a meeting, if we still have something special between us. But before you tear up this letter, I want to explain why I did what I did. When my relative passed away, I realized that life is too short, and the idea of spending the rest of my life with just one person terrified me. But now I realize that this is exactly what I want more than anything in the world, especially if that person is you. Since I lost you, my life has been downhill. I lost my job, and my parents no longer let me live with them because they're upset with me for what I did to you. I need the stability you gave me, because that's exactly what kept me centered and made me a better person. Do you still have the same phone number? You can text me there. I've unblocked you. That was the letter, but there's a lot to read between the lines, beyond what I figured out about him. To start, when he says he met many women, what he really means is, I got involved with several women, but now this doesn't satisfy me anymore, and I want to come back to you. And why would I want a man who's been through so many others and only now realizes he wants to be with me? The part about the crisis is even less convincing. I would even understand if he was going through a midlife crisis, but he's 28, a little young for that. As for losing his job and being kicked out of his parents' house, he's only telling half the truth. Yes, he lost his job and was kicked out, but like always in his version, he's the good guy of the story. The truth is that his parents kicked him out because he was turning their house into a bachelor pad, bringing girls over at all hours. They asked him to leave. Also, he was living without limits, going out, drinking, and partying all the time, which affected his work performance and led to his dismissal, giving his parents even more reasons to throw him out. He was living like a lost teenager, spending his last pennies, going out every night, jobless, and now I'm supposed to fix this mess. I'm almost sure he's been living in his car for a few weeks, and that's why he's desperately trying to contact me. I don't even believe he's truly sorry or that he still loves me. He needs a place to sleep. Well, I'm glad he had his wake-up call, but let it have been in the streets. And to leave no doubt in his alcohol-dazed mind, I unblocked him just to send a single message. Don't even think about it. After that, I blocked him again, not even waiting to see if he read it or not. When I got the confirmation that he received the message, that was enough for me. Although, in fact, the confirmation came in another way, because it's been a week and he hasn't tried to send a message through my friend. But if he tries, I've made it clear that I don't want to hear anything. My ex-fiancé is pathetic. The whole suffering over the ex thing was clearly an excuse, like I said. In the end, he just wanted to be single again and for me to wait for him with open arms, as if nothing happened. It was easier for him to say this to me than to lie and make me suffer more.